Most people in this world walk on the same road. They do not ask questions. They simply follow. They wake up in the morning, they go to school or to work, they come home, they eat dinner, they sleep, and the next day they do the same. Their lives move in a circle, safe and familiar. And society tells them this is good. Parents say, do not take risks. Teachers say, stay in line. Friends say, do what everyone else is doing. And so, the road becomes crowded. Millions of people walking in the same direction, never looking left, never looking right. But in this crowded road, there are always a few people who feel something different inside. They walk with the crowd, but their heart beats in another rhythm. They look at the same road, but their eyes search for something beyond. They hear a small voice inside that whispers, there is more than this. There is another way. Most people ignore that voice. They are afraid of it. They think, if I listen, I will lose my safety. If I listen, people will laugh at me. If I listen, I may fail. So they silence the voice, and they keep walking with the crowd. But sometimes, just sometimes, one person decides to listen. One person decides that the cost of silence is too heavy. And when that happens, a new path is born. This is the story of one boy who refused to silence that inner voice. He was not rich, he was not powerful, he was not different on the outside. But inside, his heart carried a fire that could not be put out. While others looked at the road and saw comfort, he looked at the road and saw a prison. While others walked forward without thinking, he asked himself, is this truly life? Is this truly my future? And even though he was young, he already knew the answer, no, this was not enough. He wanted more, not more money, not more things, but more meaning. He wanted to walk where no one had walked before. And so begins the story of a boy who chose not to follow, but to create. And maybe, as you listen, you will see that his story is not only his. Maybe, it is also your story. The story of the boy is not simple, and that is why it is powerful. Imagine a child who looks normal on the outside. He lives in a small town, in a simple family, with ordinary friends. Nothing about him seems special. If you walked past him in the street, you would not stop and say, ah, there goes someone who will change his life. No, he looks like everyone else. But this is where the mystery begins. Because inside his heart, there is something different. He is asking questions that others do not ask. He is looking at life with different eyes. And this is important, because change always begins with a question. Every invention, every discovery, every new idea in history started when someone asked, is there another way? The boy in this story asked that question again and again. He did not say it loudly. He did not shout it in class or argue with his parents. But when he was alone, walking home or lying in bed at night, he thought quietly, why do we all live the same life? Why do we follow the same steps without thinking? What if there is more? These questions grew stronger as he grew older. And when a question grows, it becomes impossible to ignore. You see, most people think safety means walking the same road as everyone else. But the boy started to see danger in that safety. He looked at people who followed the usual road, and he saw that many of them were not happy. They were tired, stressed, and sometimes even hopeless. They smiled in public, but when they were alone, their eyes looked empty. And he thought to himself, if this is what happens when I follow the road, then maybe the road is not safe at all. Maybe the real danger is to live without meaning. This thought scared him, but it also excited him. It was like standing at the edge of a forest. In front of him was the old road, clear and easy, where everyone else walked. The boy grew up in a very simple home. His family did not have much money, but they were not poor either. They had enough to eat, enough to wear, and a small house that kept them warm. His parents worked hard every day. His father left early in the morning for his job, and his mother spent her time caring for the family and doing what she could to support them. Like many parents, they wanted their son to have a better life than they had. They gave him advice that they believed was good and safe. They told him, study hard, get good grades, and one day you will find a safe job. If you do this, you will not suffer. You will not be hungry. You will be secure. To his parents, this was love. They wanted to protect him from pain. And so, the boy grew up hearing the same words again and again: do not take risks. Do not dream too much. Be realistic. Be like everyone else. His teachers at school said the same. They told him that the purpose of education was to prepare for exams, to pass tests, and to get a certificate. His neighbors repeated the same message. His friends talked about the same future: study, graduate, find work, marry, and repeat the life of their parents. Everyone believed this was the only road. And for a while, the boy tried to believe it too. He wanted to make his parents proud. He wanted to be a good student, a good son, and a good friend. So, he followed what they told him. He studied, he did his homework, he joined the same activities as his classmates. From the outside, he looked like every other child. But inside, something was not right. When he looked at the road that others wanted for him, he felt restless. It was like wearing clothes that did not fit. He wanted to be thankful for the life he had, but he could not silence the question in his heart: is this all? Is this the life I am supposed to live? This question followed him everywhere, even when he smiled, even when he succeeded in school. And the more he tried to push it away, the stronger it grew. At school, the boy noticed something strange about himself. His friends seemed comfortable with the life that was already planned for them. They did not ask questions about the future. They studied because the teacher told them to study. They dreamed of the same things their parents dreamed of: a safe job, a small house, a family. They laughed together, played games, and felt happy about their simple goals. But the boy could not feel the same. When his friends talked about their future, he felt quiet inside. He tried to join their conversations, but he always felt like a visitor in their world. Something inside him was different, but he did not know how to explain it. At night, when he was alone, he thought about it. He told himself, maybe I should just stop thinking. Maybe I should just follow like everyone else. For a short time, he tried to silence the questions. He tried to enjoy the same dreams as his friends. But every time he did this, a storm returned to his chest. The storm said, "This is not for you. There is more. Do not fall asleep while walking." The storm frightened him, but it also gave him energy. Deep in his heart, he knew he was different. And even though he did not yet know what his future would be, he knew it could not be the same as everyone else's. His parents noticed that he was not like other children. They saw him thinking too much, asking too many questions, and sometimes sitting quietly as if his mind was in another place. They tried to help him by repeating their advice. Life is not about what you want. Life is about what you must do. Stop dreaming. Stop asking. Just do your work. The boy listened respectfully, but the words felt heavy. He wanted to respect his parents and make them proud. The boy decided to test himself. He thought, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I should just follow the same way as my friends. Maybe if I try harder, I will feel happy. So, he chose to walk on the same road for a while. He studied every day, he followed the rules, he tried to dream the same dream. He worked hard to become like everyone else. But the more he tried, the more unhappy he became. At first, he thought it was just because of stress. But later, he realized it was deeper than stress. It was emptiness. His heart felt empty because he was not living his own truth. He was wearing a mask, and the mask was heavy. He laughed with his friends, but the laugh felt false. He studied, but the books felt dead in his hands. Slowly, he began to feel lost. The road that was supposed to give him safety was making him feel like a stranger to himself. And this feeling planted the first seed of change. The more he followed the usual way, the more he suffered inside. He woke up tired, not because of lack of sleep, but because of lack of purpose. He looked at the adults in his town, people who had followed the same road their whole lives. He saw them working long hours, coming home late, and then repeating the same cycle the next day. Some of them looked proud of their stability, but many of them looked tired and old, even while they were still young. Their eyes looked empty, their smiles weak. The boy thought to himself, if I keep walking this road, I will end up the same. The boy decided to test himself. He thought, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I should just follow the same way as my friends. Maybe if I try harder, I will feel happy. So, he chose to walk on the same road for a while. He studied every day, he followed the rules, he tried to dream the same dream. He worked hard to become like everyone else. But the more he tried, the more unhappy he became. At first, he thought it was just because of stress. But later, he realized it was deeper than stress. It was emptiness. His heart felt empty because he was not living his own truth. He was wearing a mask, and the mask was heavy. He laughed with his friends, but the laugh felt false. He studied, but the books felt dead in his hands. Slowly, he began to feel lost. The road that was supposed to give him safety was making him feel like a stranger to himself. And this feeling planted the first seed of change. The more he followed the usual way, the more he suffered inside. He woke up tired, not because of lack of sleep, but because of lack of purpose. He looked at the adults in his town, people who had followed the same road their whole lives. He saw them working long hours, coming home late, and then repeating the same cycle the next day. Some of them looked proud of their stability, but many of them looked tired and old, even while they were still young. Their eyes looked empty, their smiles weak. The boy thought to himself, if I keep walking this road, I will end up the same. This thought frightened him deeply. He did not want to live a life that was already written by someone else. He wanted a life that felt alive, even if it was hard. And so, each day, the usual road felt more like a prison. One night, after many weeks of confusion, the boy sat alone under the stars. The sky was dark and wide, and the stars looked like tiny fires burning in the endless space. He looked at them and felt very small, but also very alive. In that quiet night, something inside him became clear. He said to himself, I cannot continue this way. I cannot live a life that is not mine. I cannot spend my years walking on a road that makes me feel empty. I must create my own path, even if it is difficult. The words did not come from his head. They came from his heart. And when he spoke them, he felt a strange peace. It was as if the universe was listening. At the same time, he also felt fear. Because he knew what this choice meant. It meant he would disappoint people he loved. It meant he would face rejection, failure, and loneliness. But still, the decision felt right. He realized that true fear was not failure. True fear was living without truth. And so, that night, under the stars, he made his choice. His life would not be like everyone else's. His life would be his own. When he began to share his decision with others, the reaction was not what he hoped for. His parents were shocked. They had dreamed for years that their son would follow the safe road, and now he was telling them he would not. They said, "You are young. You do not understand life. You will make a mistake, and you will regret it." His relatives joined in. They warned him, they scolded him, they even laughed at him. His friends, too, could not believe it. Why would you leave the safe path? You are foolish, they said. One night, after many weeks of confusion, the boy sat alone under the stars. The sky was dark and wide, and the stars looked like tiny fires burning in the endless space. He looked at them and felt very small, but also very alive. In that quiet night, something inside him became clear. He said to himself, I cannot continue this way. I cannot live a life that is not mine. I cannot spend my years walking on a road that makes me feel empty. I must create my own path, even if it is difficult. The words did not come from his head. They came from his heart. And when he spoke them, he felt a strange peace. It was as if the universe was listening. At the same time, he also felt fear. Because he knew what this choice meant. It meant he would disappoint people he loved. It meant he would face rejection, failure, and loneliness. But still, the decision felt right. He realized that true fear was not failure. True fear was living without truth. And so, that night, under the stars, he made his choice. His life would not be like everyone else's. His life would be his own. When he began to share his decision with others, the reaction was not what he hoped for. His parents were shocked. They had dreamed for years that their son would follow the safe road, and now he was telling them he would not. They said, "You are young. You do not understand life. You will make a mistake, and you will regret it." His relatives joined in. They warned him, they scolded him, they even laughed at him. His friends, too, could not believe it. "Why would you leave the safe path? You are foolish," they said. Their words cut him deeply, because he cared about them. He wanted their support. But instead, he received doubt and rejection. At first, he felt pain and almost changed his mind. He thought, maybe they are right. Maybe I am foolish. But then, he remembered the emptiness he felt when he tried to live their way. He remembered the storm in his heart. He realized that the pain of rejection was real, but the pain of betraying himself was worse. And so, he chose to keep going. He said quietly to himself, "They may not believe me now. But one day, they will see." From that moment, his life became a test of courage. Every day he felt the eyes of others watching him, judging him. Some people mocked him directly. Others just gave him silent looks of disappointment. At school, he felt different. At home, he felt misunderstood. Even in the streets of his town, he felt like a stranger. The pressure was heavy, and sometimes he wanted to give up. But then he reminded himself of the choice he had made. He told himself, "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is walking forward even when fear walks beside me." These words became like a shield. Whenever people doubted him, he used those words to stay strong. And little by little, he began to accept that walking a new path meant walking alone, at least at the beginning. He learned to be his own friend, his own motivator. He wrote in his notebook, he talked to himself, he dreamed quietly. And slowly, he found a new kind of strength, a strength that was not given by others, but built inside himself. Still, the decision was only the beginning. To say, "I will make my own path," is one thing. To actually build that path is another. The boy knew that if he wanted freedom, he would have to work harder than ever before. He could no longer depend on rules and systems created by others. He would have to create his own. This thought was exciting, but also frightening. He did not know where to start. He felt like someone standing at the edge of a wide forest, with no road and no guide. But he also knew that if he did not enter, he would never discover what was inside. So, he took his first step. It was a small step, just reading a new book, just trying a new skill, just exploring an idea that was not part of the usual path. But that first step was important. Because once you take the first step into the unknown, the second step becomes easier, and then the third. And before you know it, you are walking a road that no one else has walked before. The boy began to explore many things. He read books that were not part of his school lessons. He asked questions that his teachers could not answer. He tried skills that others ignored. Some days he failed completely. He would try something new, only to see it fall apart. His friends laughed. "See? We told you this is foolish," they said. The failure hurt, but it also taught him something important. He learned that failure was not the end. Failure was a teacher. Each time he failed, he discovered something new about himself. He discovered what worked, what didn't, what needed more practice. Slowly, his fear of failure began to shrink. He realized that people who never fail are people who never try. But people who try, even if they fail, are alive. And he wanted to be alive. This new attitude gave him energy. Instead of hiding from challenges, he began to look for them. Instead of fearing mistakes, he began to welcome them. Because now he knew that mistakes were part of building his road. The journey was not easy. There were many days when he felt tired, lost, and hopeless. Sometimes he thought of returning to the safe road. He thought of giving up his dream and being normal again. But every time this thought came, he remembered the emptiness he had felt before. He remembered how dead his heart felt when he tried to follow others. And that memory pushed him forward. To give himself strength, he created small goals. He said, "Today, I will learn one new thing. Today, I will take one small step." And when he achieved those small goals, he felt proud. They were not big victories, but they were real. And little by little, those small steps became a new road under his feet. During this time, he also discovered something very important: he loved learning. Not learning for tests, not learning for grades, but learning for life. He realized that knowledge was not only in schools or classrooms. Knowledge was everywhere, in books, in conversations, in experiences, in failures. And the more he learned, the more alive he felt. He began to see that his new path was not only about escaping the old road. It was also about building himself. Each new skill he learned became like a brick, and each brick became part of the road he was creating. And with every brick, he felt more confident. He began to believe that maybe, just maybe, his dream was possible. But still, doubt returned often. Some nights, he lay awake thinking, what if I am wrong? What if I waste my time? What if I fail completely and end up with nothing? These thoughts filled him with fear. But then he reminded himself, even if he failed, at least he would know he had tried. At least he would know he had lived with courage. He told himself, better to fail on my own road than to succeed on someone else's road. These words gave him peace. And slowly, he began to see that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. And with this mindset, he kept moving forward, step by step, even when the road was dark. After many months of walking his new path, the boy began to see small changes. His skills improved. His confidence grew. People who once mocked him now became curious. They asked, "What are you doing? Why do you seem different?" He did not have all the answers, but he knew he was growing. And that growth gave him strength. He realized that the path was not only about reaching some big goal in the future. The path itself was the goal. The journey, the learning, the struggle, the growth, this was life. And for the first time, he felt truly alive. He was no longer just existing. He was living. Then came a turning point. One day, after working on his skills for a long time, he finally experienced a small success. It was not huge. It was not something that made him famous or rich. But it was real. Maybe it was finishing a project. Maybe it was creating something with his own hands. Maybe it was solving a problem no one else could solve. Whatever it was, it gave him a spark of joy he had never felt before. He looked at what he had achieved and thought, this is mine. I built this. I created this with my own effort, my own path. The feeling was stronger than any grade he had received at school, stronger than any praise from teachers or relatives. It was pure. And in that moment, he understood something important: he had been right to trust himself. The world had told him he was foolish, but now he saw the truth. He was not foolish. He was brave. And that small success gave him the courage to keep building, to keep walking, to keep believing. After his first success, something began to change around him. The same people who once laughed at him now looked at him with new eyes. His friends, who had called him foolish, began to feel curious. They whispered to each other, maybe he is not as crazy as we thought. Maybe there is something special in what he is doing. His family, too, started to notice. They still worried about him, but deep inside they felt a quiet respect. They saw that he was serious, that he was not wasting his time. And even though they did not always understand his choices, they could not deny the results. The boy felt strange about this change. He remembered the days when everyone doubted him, when he felt alone, when their words cut like knives. Now, those same people were beginning to admire him. At first, he wanted to shout, "Where were you when I was suffering? Why did you not believe me then?" But then he realized something important: people only believe when they see proof. Before, he had only words. Now, he had actions. And actions speak louder. This realization gave him peace. He no longer needed everyone to agree with him. He only needed to keep walking. The road was his, and that was enough. As he continued on his path, the boy discovered that success is not about one big moment. It is about many small victories, collected day by day. Every time he tried, every time he learned, every time he refused to give up, he was building strength inside himself. People began to ask him for advice. Younger children looked at him and said, "I want to be like him." Even some of his friends, who had chosen the safe road, began to feel inspired. They said, "Maybe we also have the power to create our own way." The boy did not feel like a hero. He still had fears, he still had doubts, he still made mistakes. But he realized that true leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being brave enough to go first. And that is what he was doing. By walking a road no one else had walked, he showed others that it was possible. His courage became a light, and that light began to guide others who were afraid of the dark. The turning point gave him not only confidence but also purpose. He understood that his journey was no longer just for himself. It was also for others. When people saw him, they saw hope. They saw that it was possible to be different, possible to be free, possible to live with meaning. And this gave the boy even more strength to continue. He thought back to the nights when he felt alone, when everyone doubted him. If he had given up then, no one would have seen this light. But because he kept going, others could now believe. This realization filled him with gratitude. He said to himself, "Maybe this is why I was different from the beginning. Maybe my path was not only about me. Maybe it was about giving courage to others." And from that day on, he carried his road with even more love, because he knew it was not just his journey. It was a gift for the world. And here, dear listener, is where the story connects to you. Because maybe you are also walking a road that others want you to follow. Maybe people around you tell you to stay safe, to stop dreaming, to accept what is normal. And maybe, inside your heart, there is also a storm. Maybe you feel restless, like the boy in this story. You want something more, but you are afraid. You want to step away, but you hear the voices of doubt around you. If that is you, then remember this: you are not alone. The boy's story is proof that even if the world tells you to follow, you still have the right to choose. You still have the power to create. The question is not whether you are afraid. Fear will always be there. The question is whether you will let fear control you, or whether you will walk forward anyway. The boy chose courage, and so can you. Now, let us talk about English. Because maybe your journey with English feels like the boy's journey. Maybe people have told you, it is too hard. You cannot do it. You will fail. Maybe you tried before and felt disappointed. Maybe you followed the same boring way of studying that everyone else used, and it made you unhappy. But just like the boy, you have a choice. You can create your own path in learning. You can learn step by step, mistake by mistake, small victory by small victory. Do not wait for people to believe in you. Believe in yourself first. Do not wait for perfect grammar or a perfect accent. Just start walking. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, every video you watch in English, these are the bricks that build your road. And one day, you will look back and realize how far you have come. Many learners feel shame when they make mistakes. But remember the boy. He failed many times, and still he grew. Failure is not the end. Failure is a teacher. Every time you forget a word, every time you make a grammar mistake, every time someone does not understand you, it is not a reason to stop. It is a lesson. It is part of the road. If you avoid mistakes, you also avoid growth. The boy discovered that mistakes were his friends. You must discover the same with English. Celebrate your mistakes, because they show that you are trying. And trying is the only way to succeed. So the lesson of the boy's story is simple but powerful: do not be afraid to create your own path. Whether in life or in learning, you do not need to follow the same road as everyone else. If the usual way does not work for you, try another way. If others laugh at you, keep going. If you feel lonely, remember that strength is born in loneliness. And if you fail, remember that failure is a step, not a wall. Your path may not be easy, but it will be real. And a real path, even if it is difficult, will always give you more life than a fake path that is safe. As we come to the end of the story, imagine again the boy standing at the edge of the road. Behind him is the path everyone else walks. Ahead of him is the forest, dark and unknown. Once, he was afraid to step forward. Once, he was alone. But now, after walking for so long, after falling and rising again, he stands with confidence. He looks back and sees how far he has come. He looks forward and sees that the road continues, endless and full of mystery. And instead of fear, he feels joy. Because now he knows that life is not about walking where the road is easy. Life is about walking where there is no road, and leaving a mark for others to follow. This is the gift of courage. And so, the boy's story becomes your story too. You are also standing at the edge of a road. Maybe it is the road of your studies, maybe it is the road of your dreams, maybe it is the road of learning English. Behind you is safety. Ahead of you is challenge. The choice is yours. Will you stay with the crowd, or will you step into the forest? Will you silence the small voice inside you, or will you listen to it? Remember, the boy was not special on the outside. He was just like everyone else. What made him different was not luck, not talent, not power. What made him different was his choice. And you can make the same choice. So, dear friend, let this story be a seed in your heart. Let it remind you that you have the power to choose your own way. Let it give you courage to continue learning, even when others doubt you, even when you doubt yourself. And let it inspire you to see English not as a wall but as a road that can take you to new people, new places, new dreams. The boy who created his own path showed us one truth: courage is not about walking where the road is easy. Courage is about walking where there is no road, and leaving a path for others to follow. Now it is your turn. Take your step. Speak your word. Create your road. Because the world is waiting for the story only you can write.